what I'm going to have a look at this evening is why you're so sensitive. So just to give you a little bit of background, I'm known for my intuitive side of things. For me, as a personal experience, many of you, because obviously you're involved around Reiki and involved around yoga, are going to have had a very similar foundation to what I've had. Okay, so my early life, very much the case of having a natural intuitive psychic skill that I assumed everybody else knew about everybody else's thoughts and feelings, and got into a lot of trouble on many an occasion for mentioning them when I thought it was something that I'd been told. Apparently not. It wasn't until my early 20s, really, when I saw my grandmother, who'd passed several years previously, standing at the front door waving at me, that I thought it was all a bit odd. From that point forth, I then started to question it and have a look at it. So one of my very close friends, one of my very close childhood friends, said to me recently, she said, Heidi, that stuff you do. I was thinking, all right, okay, here we go. We went to a Catholic school, so as you can imagine. And she said, that stuff you do, I know it's real. I said, right, okay, why? And she said, because you were the last person I ever imagined doing what you do. So for me, it took an awful lot of convincing. So my grandmother had to work very hard to get me to notice. And the day that I actually started to notice was the last time I actually saw her. I haven't seen her since that occasion. I took an awful lot of convincing, a huge amount of convincing for it to be something that I wasn't ashamed of. And a lot of high sensitives are very ashamed of their natural intuitive instincts. They think it's something that's is some kind of disability, that they don't really want it. Certainly, that was for me in the early days. What I decided, though, it was a long time ago that I started to take up that particular path, and at that time there wasn't much available for people that wasn't a bit too spooky, that wasn't a bit sort of interesting. So what I set out to do was to provide a level of service that other sensitives would want, but that wasn't spooky. So over the years I've trained in various different areas. My main interest is transpersonal psychology. I'm a Hay House author and speaker, so I speak and write for Hay House. I'm sure you've heard of at least half a dozen of their authors. So that gives you hopefully a little bit of background. I've taught this subject area full-time now for about 16, 17 years, I think it is. I travel all over the place. I provide a service for 30,000 sensitives worldwide. So that gives you a little bit of background. So what we're going to have a look at, hopefully you can see, this is just to guide you. This is actually recorded so that if there is anything that you want to go back over later, etc., we just send you the MP3 recording so that you can go back to it. Okay. So the life of you as a sensitive individual, just to define what that is, for you to even be here this evening, you're what's called an intuitive sensitive. If you were not an intuitive sensitive, you would have no interest in giving up your Friday evening. Okay. What that means is that you came into this world with a highly tuned nervous system. You have a nervous system which is different to the average person. You are aware of it in terms of thoughts and feelings, and knowing that you have an awareness of other people's emotions. whether you like it or not. Some sensitives will process that through the body, so you feel it deeply in the solar plexus. Others, if you're more visual, you'll get quite strong imagery. So you may well be sitting on a bus or something, mind your own business, and then all of a sudden you get scenes from a soap opera running through your head, and you think, well, hang on a second, what was all that to do with? And it may be an argument that you've seen on TV suddenly running through your head, and you think, well, what's the relevance to that? Why is that popping into my head? It will be because the person who just sat down next to you has been around arguments, and you're picking it up in your energy field. So there is quite a lot of research to suggest that there is rather a portion of the population that do have this extra sensitive nervous system, and it will manifest in different ways. Now, primarily, it is the life of the burden bearer. Okay, you are extremely good at taking on everybody else's woes, troubles, and worries. You seem to have it tattooed on your head. Again, you go out and about, minding your own business. Someone sits down next to you and decides to tell you their entire life history, and you think, okay. And then they say to you, I've never told anyone that before. Okay, so why are you telling me? You may also find that it becomes something, because you literally will absorb that emotion, so it becomes very draining. So it becomes something that you'll go into certain environments and you'll come out like that. Sensitives hate shopping. You maybe do it for a bit, but you'll come home like that. All of that stimulation, and you certainly don't do generally. And obviously, I'm talking in very general terms. Okay, so you pick out what resonates for you and put to one side what doesn't. You will get most sensitives hate the idea of roller coasters, anything that is over-stimulating. My sons made me go down water slides the other day. It was my idea of hell. Because it overstimulates an already hyper system. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah? So, what is it? As I say, a sensitive is an intuitive sensitive is someone who absorbs the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of other people. Okay, so you do accumulate them, very much so in the solar plexus region. Okay, over a period of time, that can materialize in certain health challenges for sensitives. So the things that are very common in sensitives are anything to do with the autoimmune system. So there is an unnaturally high amount of sensitive individuals who will have an autoimmune related issue. So I think we did a survey and it was about 2,000 people, and sensitives had a 30% average in terms of, the average was 30% higher than the national population in sensitives of autoimmune disease. Okay, so quite a few of those will be around the kind of lupus family to a certain degree. Okay, the absorption in the solar plexus will also stimulate things. Well, it will heighten cortisol levels, which is a hormone that helps you to process the fight-flight response. You will have higher cortisol levels than the average person. So cortisol levels that keep rising and get stuck over a long period of time then starts affecting the hormonal cycle, and then you start ending up with chronic fatigue. So there is, again, as far as high sensitives are concerned, an above average number who go through at some point in their life chronic fatigue symptoms. Who's gone through chronic fatigue? Yeah, quite a few of you. So generally, you're easily overwhelmed by a continual flow of data, okay, and that you're having to process it all the way through your your nervous system. And you also find it a bit of a challenge to define your own sore spots. So where does your energy begin and where does someone else's end? Okay, so you're quite heavily influenced by other people and their environment. So you'll go into certain environments and you'll find that it's very comfortable. In other environments you find that you're quite defensive and you won't understand why. All sensitives have to go through at some point or another an aspect of withdrawal in order to regroup yourself. Okay, so small talk is not really your thing. You'll find that talking about the weather, talking about very sort of surface areas, anything deep, you're there for hours. Okay, so you'll do people for an hour or two, and then you're off. If it's too surface, if it's deep, you'll be there till 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, does that make sense? But there are certain things that do affect sensitives to a certain degree, and these are going to be some of the things that some of these things are going to resonate with you, some of them are not. But generally, high sensitives, in terms of an intuitive sensitive, because you will develop the intuitive senses, not necessarily as a defense mechanism, but a part of you will want to develop that as a point of connection, because you can see right the way through situations, things and people. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you have to connect with something that's deeper. So part of the opening process with your intuitive senses happens because that's your way of connecting with something deeper. So a lot of high sensitives will go through the angel phase. Okay, I'm just using this as an example. The angel phase is where you're very attracted to the idea of angels, angel connection and all of that kind of thing, and you'll go through the pink and purple phase, which is if you see anything that's lilac or pink, it's got to have it. What that is, it's the heart center expanding. Okay, so in order for you to connect with something that's unconditional love, you have this very strong affinity or desire to connect with angels at some level. Who's been through the angel phase? Yeah. You'll find though that it lasts for a period of time, and it lasts whilst the heart center is opening. Okay. Then when the heart center is kind of finished its thing, it's moved more towards an unconditional love, the angel phase kind of tails off. It may come back again, but generally it moves away. Okay, when it then moves away, you want the next phase, which you want is normally something that's deeper and connected around consciousness. Okay, does that make sense? So a lot of sensitives will have a lack of self-belief at some level or another. Okay, now this isn't every high sensitive. I'm talking about quite a large chunk. Okay, so if this resonates with you, you'll understand. You will have gone through perhaps a phase where you assume that your sensitivity is weird. You've been called too sensitive. So it's, don't feel like that, you're too sensitive, I'm only joking. When you can actually feel what is meant. Okay? So to you, it's not a joke, because you know exactly what the undertone meant. Okay? So to a certain degree, intuitive sensitives will go through a phase of not feeling connected either to their environment or to themselves. Okay, so there is quite often an alone phase, and there's a feeling that you want to go home, but you're not quite sure what home means. Does that make sense? Yeah. So during this phase, and you have to pass through this phase. Okay, it's not because it's part of the cycle as far as you deepening your intuitive connection and the soul's connection. You have to have an understanding of polarities. So you will go through the self-image issue in order to understand the whole. Does that make sense? Yeah. So if you think, oh gosh, I'm stuck in this phase, it's going to last forever. No, it doesn't. I'm just giving it to you as a ways and means of you understanding something. Okay. So the self-image issue will come up. So there's a poor self-image, which is that everybody else is more important than you. So you put everybody else first, and you trail somewhere a long way behind. Okay. That will materialize in certain aspects as an esteem issue. Okay. Which also means that you will distrust your own perceptions. So everybody else says, oh, you're actually really quite wise. You have these words of wisdom, which is why everyone comes and asks you what you think, because you come out with the truth. But you'll come out in a very kind way, whereas everybody else seems to sort of do what they think is the right answer, and you take a moment that's long enough to feel what is the right answer. Okay, so you're an extremely good friend. So some of those friendships over the years will have been abused. Okay, because people don't understand what you offer in terms of a friendship other than a fellow sensitive. Okay, so for the things that I help other sensitives do and connect with, they will develop friendships which may only have been a few weeks old or even a few years old, but they feel like a lifetime, because they're the deepest, most genuine friendships and connections that they've ever had, because they're connecting with a fellow sensitive. Okay, so what you actually feel is going on below the level of other people's consciousness. So you can feel, as I said earlier, the undertones. You can feel the energy that runs underneath stuff. You will not absorb what's on the top layer. You are always looking for the underlayer. Okay. Now you're all involved in Reiki, so even more so, you're heightening that perception all the time, which is you're heightening your perception of linking with consciousness. Okay, does that make sense? So this is just, as I say, something that some of you may connect with. So often for a child, as a burden-bearing sensitive, in your early life, you may have experienced rejection at some level or another for your sensitivity. It may have been amongst your family unit, or it may even have been amongst your peers. Okay. A big thing for intuitive sensitives is this fear of mockery at some level or another, or a fear of humiliation. So a lot of therapists, as an example, won't properly go in to their skills and their work, their purpose as far as that's concerned, because if you question them enough, they'll come down to this fear of humiliation. And that fear of humiliation will have a foundation in early life. Okay. You will also have had at some level a feeling of being dismissed for your sensitivity. So the things that you've felt or connected with, or if you've had an experience that's been spiritual or psychic, that will have at some level been dismissed, especially in early life. Okay, it's much more accepted now, but take it back 20, 30, 40 years, it's some don't touch these kind of things. It's all in your imagination. So all of those things, what happens is that they lead to a place within where there is a shutting down. Okay, so there is a shutting down of a connection between your intuitive self and your emotions. Okay, it's a self-protection mechanism. what you're doing as far as your connection with Reiki is concerned, and definitely what happens as far as yoga is concerned, you are your consciousness is starting to connect enough to open that back up again. Okay, it needs the energy flow. It can't stagnate. It actually needs the energy flow to be able to do that. So there are two reactions to high sensitivity. So one is to follow the intuitive directive to help make things better. So your key thing that you want to do in life is to make things better. So it's to solve things for people. You want to help others, all of that. Okay. The other is that you throw yourself into fixing, or whomever or whatever you see as needing fixing. Okay, we've all been through that, and we've all got the no, go away, I don't want fixing, or you've been, but I'm only trying to help, and you can see what's going to occur if they don't accept that help, and you're trying to save them from it, fix them, and then you end up getting bruised because you get a kickback, okay, because they can't feel that at a deeper level. So then what tends to happen, so it's either that or you go through both of these, which is it's either that you want to help, you want to fix, or you go through that phase of feeling that you want to withdraw because there's too much pain. Okay. So what happens is in trying to fix things, you've gone through back into the rejection, so the core early rejection, and feel that that's futile, so you're not going to do it because no one seems to want to respond to that. So you go into the withdrawal and you remove yourself from the thing that causes pain, which is people. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. But in actual fact, you're extremely social beings. Sensitives are extremely social. They're very connected. Okay, so it feels contradictory. So making things better no matter what, so trying to fix things and solve things, and no matter what, this is what it leads to. It leads to an undisciplined compassion. Okay, I'm going to go into what that means. An undisciplined compassion to a sensitive is quite dangerous. It'll start eroding your system. Okay, does that make sense? So to give you an idea, I'm telling you not to frighten you, I'm just telling you that this is part of your cycle. I blew up my system years ago. Okay, mine is well and truly busted. I have, autoimmune diseases. I've got scleroderma. I've got I go in and out diabetes. I have no endocrine function. It's all done artificially, and I have Hashimoto's as well. So I've done quite well. So, over a period of time, undisciplined compassion can have a huge impact on your system. Okay. What happens is it lacks a strength and a wisdom or a direction. So you have to build the foundations, and you have to build the foundations from the internal world out rather than from the outside in. Okay. What happens is over a period of time, the undisciplined compassion results in your system burning out. And I just gave you examples of how mine broke. So for a lot of sensitives, again, this is where a lot will go through the fatigue cycles. Okay, who's got any autoimmune issues? Can't believe you haven't. Yeah, a few of you will. Yeah, foods are, foods, bloating, all of that is autoimmune. It's the beginning of autoimmune issues, which are, that is too high a cortisol. So cortisol is your stress hormone. So the bloating, and that's the primary area it's going to go to. So cortisol will put on weight around the middle. So you can blame it on that. Okay, not on the cakes. But also, a lot of sensitives are very drawn towards sugar, because guess what? Sugar helps to even out cortisol levels. So a chocolate, prime example of that, chocolate, I find that people who are very connected as far as chocolate are concerned have had some aspect of early life criticism. And it's their inner rebellion to eat the chocolate, because it builds serotonin levels. I do, just very quickly, I do this thing called mind and body, and I do this with a medic. So she does the body part, and I do the psychological part. And what I make people do within this is look at the things that they are very connected to. So, and you can really, really bring out their fury by making them sit and look at a cake and let them go through the emotions connected to it. And what I've seen is people who've gone through nurturing issues, very drawn towards cake. Those who are quite nostalgic, biscuits. Criticism is chocolate. And crisps is normally that it's abandonment stuff, because when they were kids, they were left in the car with a packet of crisps and a bottle of Coke. Okay? So as soon as they feel inner abandonment, they go for the crisps. Everything as far as the internal, everything as far as the high sensitive is concerned is very, very geared towards the internal world. Okay, you don't generally have things that are very tied to the physicality. So the body doesn't necessarily get addicted to things. It's the emotions. Okay, and it's the high cortisol levels. I lowered my cortisol levels and lost 4 stone by simply doing that and eating full fat. I think, oh, how I'm eating, cakes, biscuits and all that, love butter. Obviously not in bucket loads. But I lost 4 stone by working along the lines of the cortisol levels. Okay, it's a very powerful thing in a sensitive system. That's why dieting for a sensitive doesn't work, because it triggers the guilt, raises the cortisol. Okay. So, when things have begun to move forward, so obviously everyone in here, you're going through the cycles of moving forward. You're already very self-aware. You have a level of awareness that's over and above someone just starting out. Okay, I can feel, for instance, that a lot of you do a lot of work because you've already got quiet minds. Your heads aren't bzz. Normally when I walk into an environment, heads are going bzz. Okay. So I'm going to power on because I haven't got long, have I? Okay, well, I haven't even got there yet. So I better move it on. Okay, so these are some of the things that you want to do, or that you have absolutely found yourself in, which is that you want to move on from things that have been damaging. Okay, so you will have found that you've moved on from certain friendships, environments. You've moved on from accepting compromise. Okay, so you like authentic friendships, connections. You can't be bothered with surface stuff. You've got fed up with that. You've done all that. You're not interested. You've had enough of repeating patterns and scenarios. You've worked through those. You've probably worked through a lot of your own, and now you want to help others move through theirs. And you want to experience a deeper level of consciousness. Okay, so at the stage that you're at, you'll be looking for something deeper. Does that make sense? You're looking for something that's got this a deep aspect of connection. That stack of books by the side of your bed never seems to go down. There's always something that you're adding to it, and you rarely finish one of them. Okay, that is who you are as an intuitive sensitive, and that's how you'll continue. Okay, who's got a stack of books? Yeah. And Kindle's not enough. And you know why? Because you've got to get the feel of it. And you also need to do the highlighting thing. Okay? And that's not going to happen on Kindle. So you'll read the things on Kindle that don't really matter to you. And anything that matters to you, you have to have the hard copy. Okay? See, I know you. So the journey to profound development, so you've already gone through the opening stages. So you've gone through the opening stages. Otherwise you wouldn't have been interested in Reiki, for starters. So you've gone through the opening stages of, so these are some of them. Okay, some of them are knowing who's on the phone before you picked it up, obviously not caller ID. You've had a feeling about someone, and then they phoned you, you've bumped into someone you haven't seen in years, just the point of you thinking about them. You seem to have an instinct for things, you're in the right place at the right time, coincidence seems to be really quite handy as far as you're concerned. Things tend to line up for you, and there's quite a strong feeling of what's meant to be. Okay, so those are the earlier opening stages. You may have started to go through the emotional components, but if you haven't yet, sorry, you're going to go through it at some point, which is it's the energies of the lower vibrations cannot stay in your system. They have to find their way out. So that is sometimes reflected in your external world by people being a right pain in the backside. And you think, what the hell have I done to deserve this? What have I done to attract this? And why are they barking at me like some mad person? It's because it's connected as far as the internal stuff, as far as your energy is concerned, that's leaving your system for the higher vibrations to become part of it. You have to have a clear out. Okay, the old things that literally rot in the bottom of your fridge have rotted, so to speak, in the bottom of your internal fridge, and it literally is the stage now where you're finding some old manky lettuce, and it's time for it to go because it's stinking. And for you to notice, some of these things have to be exaggerated in the external world. Okay, so some sensitives go through periods of depression, so you may feel that there are associations with depression symptoms for a period of time. Okay, they don't last forever. It doesn't mean to say that you are someone who's a depressive type. It means that you go through these cycles. Okay, does that make sense? Why? Well, if you don't go through these things, how the hell are you going to understand other people? If your purpose in life is to connect with others, help them, work with them, how the hell are you going to do that if you haven't had an understanding of that in your own body? Okay, so a lot of these things, you're taken through these experiences in order for you to understand other people, and also to be able to read their energy at that kind of level. Okay, it's not punishment. You think, what have I done? Have I been really bad in a past life or something? No, it's about raising vibration. Okay, now what we're coming into is a time of much higher vibration. What's happened in the Western world is we've moved beyond the survival mechanisms. Okay, so we've moved beyond the base energies, we've moved beyond the sacral energies, we've actually moved beyond the solar plexus energies. We're actually moving up into the throat, the third eye, and the crown. Okay, so what does that mean? We have to evolve our consciousness. Otherwise, the body can't, what's been asked of us, the next stage, cannot happen without us letting go. This is why we're seeing, in the Western world, the breakdown of authority. Okay? And we've been seeing that over the last 5-10 years. Okay, that's just going to increase I said about 8-9 years ago that there were going to be floods now. I said the whole thing's, everywhere's going to be flooded. I'm moving to high ground. Everyone took the mickey out of me and said, oh, for God's sake, Heidi, you're being ridiculous. I said, I'm going somewhere where I know, because I don't want water in my front room. So I moved to high ground and I said, stuff it, I'm going up there. You can laugh as much as you like. I'm still up there. Okay, fine. I don't want water in my front room. So now people have actually phoned me and say, right, what's happening next? Well, what's next? It's all there. The energy is all there. The cycles of energy are all there. And I'll show you where they are in a minute. They're all there to be seen, and you can see them all in motion, as in how they're coming in, what the next cycles are. Okay, it's not all... I haven't been hit on the head with a magic stick. Okay, I'm high sensitive, exactly the same as you. All I've done is develop it. Okay, so there are 3 crucial areas. Okay, these are the 3 areas that you need to master in order to get into the deeper layers of consciousness. Okay, the first one is mind management. I'll obviously go into what that means in a minute. The second one is transition. Okay, and the third one is the soul realization. There's 3 cycles within this. This is beyond the basics of psychic development. You've all gone into that cycle, whether you realize it or not. There's different layers of intuitives. Okay, you've got the clairaudient type, who are usually mediums. Okay, mediums is mediumship is specifically talking to dead people. You've got the clairvoyant types, who will see images. Okay, normally in the mind's eye, but sometimes you see them externally. And then you've got the clairsentients, who feel their intuitive process through the body. The majority of you in here are going to be clairsentient types. Okay, then you add into a mix of that, you add in the touch types and the non-touch. So the touch types will go into someone's energy field, and the non-touches will pull out of an energy field. Okay, in order to feel connection. So for some of you who are extreme touch, clairsentients, when you look for connection, you move into someone's field, and when they're pulling back, you'll assume rejection. And then in that assumption of rejection, you'll then go into withdrawal and then be very cautious about who you connect with. Okay, and then also you have the fake non-touch. And the fake non-touch are people who are high touch people, who are clairsentients, feeler types, who were brought into a family who were non-touch, extreme non-touch types. So their idea of love would have been reading you a story. Yours would have been just climb over somebody. Okay, it wasn't there, so you assume you're not loved, and so you then get into this fake non-touch thing. Okay, does that make sense? So I can tell you who's touch and who's not touch and all this kind of thing. You can see already most of you are clairsentient types touch. You're an extreme touch. Yeah. But you can watch it dance around the room, because a touch is trying to go in, and then the non-touch is going. So they're literally doing this around the room. They say, well, I'm trying to connect with you. So the key is to work out what people are, and you can get them to do anything if you operate on the the right side of their energy system. It literally is. Do they get out the wrong side of bed? Yeah. If you get into the wrong side of their energy field, you will feel as though it's pounding straight at you. The key is to notice how yours operates, and then you can adjust to how somebody else's does. Okay. So these are the 3 crucial areas. So this, hopefully you can see this. Some of you will be, I utilize the tree of life, okay, pretty much through everything that I do, because it's a very, very handy way of looking at things. And these are Kabbalistic principles. So you've got Kabbalah with a K, that's the thing that Madonna's into. And you've got Kabbalah with a Q, which is a formation of the Hebrew foundations. Okay, the Hebrew version is a few thousand years old. What it utilizes is this thing called the tree of life. Now, it may just look like a whole, bunch of numbers in a grid kind of thing, but it is actually the thing that holds the information about everything. You are in here, the universe is in here, the layers of consciousness are in here, how everything operates in here, and it's all in there when I say about the floods. So the numbers on there all mean something. Okay, if you match, it's numerology matched with, if you match numerology with Kabbalah, I do something called the life codes. You put the two together, it gives a very accurate interpretation of not only your internal world, but what is due to manifest in the external world. But I'm showing you this simply because I'm just going to show you how the different layers of consciousness add to it. I'm not sure you can see that, it's probably a bit small. Okay, I'll just give it to you, just to show you here. This is how it forms over the body. Okay, so you've got the midsection, which is the consciousness line. You can match that to the chakras. Okay, so the 110 energy at the bottom, the root, is that's based with you in your physical world. Okay, that's you as the everyday person. The 9 vibration, which is on the sacral, that is around you as the subconscious. Okay, so the subconscious powers the physical world. It takes instruction. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. The solar plexus is the connection point between the 7 and the 8 energy, which is head and emotion. So it's between your head and feelings. Okay, we all get confused at time, which bit's instinct, which bit's imagination. Where does it get confused? In the solar plexus. Okay. 6 vibration is the soul. Okay, so it's the soul's connection. So the soul connects, how the soul connects through the subconscious into the physical world. The heart center sits around the dynamic of the 5 and the 4, which is will and love. So without will and love, there is no manifestation. It cannot create in the physical world and sustain if you haven't got those 2 energies present. Okay, if one skipped out, the other can't. It cannot maintain itself. Okay, that's why people who win the lottery lose it all, because they don't feel worthy of keeping it. There's will, but there's no love. And the love has to be for the self, but they feel worthy of allowing it to maintain itself in the physical world. Okay. The throat is around the Darth energy, and the Darth is about challenge. It's it's the deepest root of your challenges in life. It's those things that whip up where you weren't expecting, and it takes your legs out. Literally, they are things that really stir up the emotions because it's outside of your control, but they're extremely good for you. Because those things are on reflection were tremendous learning curves in life that you really appreciate now. At the time, you hated it. Okay, those are very centered around the throat. It's around communication. So most intuitive sensitives will have an issue around the throat chakra. Normally, if I do meditation or what have you, or I start talking about it, everyone starts choking. Okay, because it then stirs up the energies that get stuck there. Because everything that you wanted to say and everything you haven't said is all stuck between the jawline. Is normally in the jawline. So if you give me a load of pictures of jawlines, I can tell you all about their lives. Because everything about you is in here. Everything that you've tried to suppress and you've let out is all here. So what happens as you go further into your development, everyone says, oh gosh, you look younger. There's something about you that you think, oh, okay, you look younger. It's not Botox, okay? I'm really 82. And the reason is what they're actually saying is you're losing the tension in your jaw. Okay, so you're losing the build-up. People with very tight jaws, and it isn't a face, it's an energetic tightness in the jaw. When you see that energetically, you'll feel that you'll pull back from it. Okay, no one in here is going to have a tight jaw before you start going like that. Okay. The crown is the connection to whatever you see as the source. Okay, so as far as the tree of life is concerned, the top, the crown, exposed as the ultimate, is your connection to all that is. Within the foundations of the tree of life, there is no separation. So everything is an extension of you. Okay. So just to layer this, so it gives you a picture of how things work. So what we have, and this, hopefully this light will work if you can see that. This line at the bottom here, this is the lower nature. Okay, so this is you as a physical body. The next layer is the astral. Okay, so the astral is it's a manifestation of emotion. So all of your emotions are in what's called the big donut in the sky, for a technical term. And the big donut in the sky is the part that you can interpret as psychic information. Okay, that's when you know who's going to be on the phone. That's the bit that you have a feeling that you should be in contact with so-and-so. If you've had very vivid dreams of people who've passed over as though you met them, you did. Okay, you met them in the astral. And the reason that they met you on that level is because you couldn't cope with it in the physical. You'd be too freaked out. Okay, the next stage is for it then to be in the physical world. Okay, does that make sense? Who's had the meeting on the astral? Yeah. Then, as we go into the mental body, which is here, this is the line of your connection within the subconscious. So this is how all the stacking up in your subconscious over your lifetime, but also your ancestral path. So you're very emotionally connected to not only your parents, but their history too. So all of that lineage is still part of your energy system. And at some point or another, as your awareness opens up, your consciousness opens up, all that comes to the fore. Okay? So you get a bit of their manky old lettuce as well. Okay? So when all this is opening up, you get this very strong attraction to things like NLP, coaching, healing. It's the beginnings of psychic ability. Okay, it's the opening signs, and it's the opening signs are geared towards the heart center. Okay, you've all been through this phase, by the way. So as it moves deeper into the tree, this is about the soul and the soul's path. This is where you can no longer accept compromise, where it's very difficult to compromise your life. So if you do a line of work that you really don't like, it's getting more and more difficult for you to drag yourself in there every day. Okay, even though it pays the mortgage. At some point or another, you're very close to knocking it on the head. Okay, does that make sense? Who's already done that? Okay, yeah. So this is the next stage of the soul progression. Okay, so this is the healing of the personality, and it's the higher psychic senses, and it's the manifestations of desire. Okay, so this is the three stages: the mind management, the transition, and the soul realization. Okay, and this is how deep it goes into the tree. Then you go up into the top sections of the tree, which there may be terms that you've heard: the causal body, the Buddhic vibration, and the Atma. Okay, so these are those are energy; they're not physical manifestations. Okay, so that is pure consciousness. But in order for you to be able to sustain and have a strong realization of these vibrations, you have to have mastered these. Okay? Otherwise, you're away with the fairies. You cannot sustain properly in the physical world, in reality, for the physical world if you haven't mastered those vibrations. Okay? Everyone wants to skip to that bit. Yeah? Don't want to go through that bit. Pain. Don't like pain. Okay? So, the midsection is some of the, the journey towards unconditional love, the healing of esteem. When we're going into the higher vibrations, causal body and beyond, we're talking about what people connect with as the guru, the saint, the ascended master. So if you're interested in those vibrations, you're very interested in the energy at that level. So you're trying to bring it further into your physical world, probably to accelerate your path. Because you start downloading the top bit into your physical world, well, you won't know what's hit you. Okay? So all leading towards, an expression. I'm using expressions that are familiar. The monad, okay, so it's the spark of light, who you are as the essence that connects with everything. Okay? So, does that all make sense to everyone? Yeah? So, the journey there, so we're going into, what's mind management. Now this isn't, I mustn't think negative thoughts, but you do. No, it's that. I am beautiful. No, you're not. It's that. If you try and, I see things around sort of affirmations, etc., is a perfect way to hear the stuff that's going on behind. It's I am wonderful. I love myself. No, you don't. You hate yourself. Is to listen to that bit and say, what do you want then? Who are you? And it will talk to you. That energy will talk to you. It's not about, if you try and ignore it and batter it down and squash it and push it to one side, all it will do is seek to get you in other ways. Okay? Does that make sense? So mind management is the controlling of the mind mess. Okay? Everyone's goes through the mind mess phase, which is the stage at which you cannot control some aspects of what goes on in terms of negativity or fears, and they are powered by the external world. Okay, so as soon as something triggers you in the external world, your internal mind mess goes nuts. Okay? So this is about overriding negative thought patterns over and above affirmations. Now I suggest as a starting point, it is you do that whole thing where, you do something that you know is going to be uncomfortable, and you to see what the voice is behind. And to go with that, not to try and beat it up, but to actually talk to it and see where it comes from, what its communication is. Is it part of your life? Is it part of your history? Where does it feature? It'll show you, and it'll show you as to where it's come from and where it sits in the layers of your consciousness, whether it sits in the soul, whether it sits in the subconscious, whether it sits higher up, whether it's yours or someone else's, or even someone's that you've picked up. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah? Again, as I say, tackling the source of the mind chatter rather than the result, which is going back into the bit behind. It's not about telling yourself just be quiet, it's about transcending. Okay? Now you've got to have enough kindness in order to transcend. And you've got bucket loads towards everybody else, but where is it towards yourself? You wouldn't dream of speaking to another person the way that a part of your psyche talks to you. But it holds up your process, and it holds up your intuitive instinct. Okay? And it is absolutely about transcending that you're not enough. Okay, this is a key thing. The thing that I teach all the time is about, people say, oh, I want to be able to read like you can and to the intuitive level that you can. Yeah, but you cannot if you're not prepared to transcend that you're not enough. Okay, so I bang on and on and on and on and on about the core vibration of dealing with that you're not enough. And at some level, all sensitives have that. Okay? Otherwise, you wouldn't be a sensitive. Okay? because you wouldn't feel what it's like to be part of someone else's world. Okay? In that transcendence, it then means that you're not burdened by people's energies, you're fascinated by them. There's something that you want to... I'm known for really the muckiest situation ever. I love going in to have a look. I get people's real mucky things, and they say, I can't believe it. I say, oh yeah, look at that. Oh, that's that interesting how that energy works. And they'll say to me, gosh, you're the only person that hasn't judged me, because I'm not looking at their stuff. I'm looking at them from their energy perspective and how they can get to the result that they want, not my opinion of them. Okay, does that make sense? But you have to be prepared to move through the mind mess in order to understand, to get to that energy level. It's not about pushing energy away, which is very tempting. It's about understanding that it's different to yours. Okay? Doesn't mean say you like it or you have to accept it. It's just different. Okay? Allowing the soul vibration to harmonize with the personality. Do you understand what that means? I'm not getting too technical. If the personality can then harmonize with the soul vibration, you then access the transcendent self. If you want the enlightened experience, and you want to have that enlightened experience as part of your conscious world, this is what you got to do. Okay? And to give you an example, a couple of years ago, 2 and a bit years ago, I was, as you think, oh God, the things that have gone on in my life, you think it's out of some kind of film. A couple of years ago, I had a child. Okay, it took me 7 years to sum up the courage to do it again. There's 7 years between my sons, because I knew that something awful was going to happen on the second one. I just knew. So it took me 7 years, and then I kind of got a bit too old and thought I'll have to do it now or it's not going to happen. So I had my second son. When it came to the pregnancy and the end of the cycle of that pregnancy, I had, if you can imagine, the rarest, most dangerous, most appalling birth experience that anyone could possibly have. That was what I was going to have. Okay, the only reason I am alive is because of modern medicine. That's it. There isn't. If I'd had my son 20 years ago, I would never have survived. In fact, even now, I was lucky. I was told to put all my affairs in order, because there was no guarantee that I was going to survive. So when I was wheeled in, it was like a carry-on thing, because before I had the operation, the risk was I had something called placenta accreta and a full previa, which means that there was no way I could have the child without bleeding to death. And that's the fact of it. So what they did before I had the operation was they got they said, we're going to try this new thing. Well, oh, great. We're going to actually stuff wires down your major arteries. Oh, great. So we're going to have to do this operation before you have the operation to have your child out. All right, okay. I'm thinking, like little wires, fence posts. You know those great big wires that they use for fencing? So I'm wheeled up to the theatre with these fence posts hanging out of my legs. And I couldn't go on my back because the pressure had built so high in my body that as soon as I lay on my back, I passed out. So I'm hanging on to the side of this trolley with these fence posts, going into theatre thinking and being told, right, okay, we're taking a chance here. I'm not really sure if you're going to make it. And the surgeon wouldn't talk to me because she was too freaked out. So I'm in there thinking, okay, this is interesting. It's a bit of a dance here. And it got to the point where I just thought, you know what, I've had enough. Whatever is whatever. And I said, I'm just going to let go. And in that experience of letting go, I had that complete feeling of connection. Total and utter feeling of connection, where the soul absolutely met the personality, but I was conscious. Most people only have these as complete out-of-body experiences. After my surgery, the surgeon actually said, she said, you put 20 years on me. She said, I don't know what the hell happened in there, some kind of miracle. She said, because she said, it was too weird. She said, it was so weird I had to open you back up again. I went, oh thanks, that was 4 hours then. She said, because I just thought this can't be right. So it's what I'm telling you that story not to scare the living daylights out of you. It's to give you that idea of, you don't have to go through some extremity, okay? But the idea of that what you're fighting is yourself, okay? So I'm going to start speaking. Oh, crikey. Okay. So I'm going to... Okay. So mind management, the super contemplative state, meditation. Okay, you're all familiar with that, I'm sure, to a certain degree. In order to get to those deeper layers of the self, you have to go into a component of meditation. Okay, you can't escape it. If you want to learn how to manage the mind mess, you've got to do that at some level. It doesn't have to be for hours at a time. Yoga, for instance, is preparation for meditation. You already know that, no doubt. The transition. It's the next stage of the development process. It's a period of mind steadiness and waiting. If you can feel that something big is going to happen, but you can't quite fathom what it is, but you can feel something's happening and something big is happening inside, and you don't know, and you're bursting at the seams for it, but you can't connect with it, you're in the transition. It can also feel like quite an alone place. That everybody else is doing other things, and you think, hang on, I feel a bit totally disconnected and alone within this. What the hell's going on? You're leaving the old energy and you're moving into the new. And as you move into the new, there's this kind of no man's land in between. That's what the transition phase is. Who feels that they may be in the transition? Okay. So during the transition, you can get an incensed. I think that should say increased. Incensed to a certain degree, with a feeling of frustration. The frustration will build hugely. You get this feeling of powerlessness, that there's nothing you can do to change things, and that nothing is moving. If you're feeling stuck at the moment, you're in the transition. Who's feeling stuck? Okay. You've done the work, but nothing feels as though it's changed. Okay. You think, oh God, I've done all this work. I still get met with pain in the backside people. What the hell's going on? The truth is that everything has changed, okay? It's the ego self which is frustrated. Simple as that. It's been previously constantly entertained, and it demands attention. And all of a sudden it's not getting the attention. It has a stompy, okay? The ego is necessary. It's not about you battering it out of you. It's necessary to maintain yourself in the physical. If you didn't have it, you would just merrily, wander out in the middle of the road and go, oh, damn. Got to go and get another one. Takes a while. So it's necessary, okay? An unmanaged transition will mean that you deteriorate into emotional blankness. Okay, so there will be a sort of a kind of spacey blankness kind of thing going on. Yes, the seeds of the ego will sprout within that, and you start getting back into negative cycles and behaviours that you've been trying to break or crack or change. Okay. The soul realization is the stage of true self-awareness and spiritual growth. This is where you really enter that phase of immense spiritual growth. Okay. Normally, yes, something quite tricky has occurred in order for you to accept that. Okay. And this is the stage that all committed sensitive people want to attain. This is what you're looking for. Okay? So when you think, what am I looking for? What is it that I want? That's what you want. You want the soul realization. Because within the soul realization, whatever you do in the external world doesn't matter. Because, or whatever goes on in the external world, absolute everything can hit the fan. But you go, oh, interesting. How do I deal with that? Oh, okay. And then magically, the thing occurs that you need in order for that to change. Okay, does that make sense? The process of that is definitely the opening of the intuitive senses beyond the basics of psychic. Okay, it's the deeper intuitive instincts. So it takes time, it takes effort, and it takes a dedication to the self and the bigger picture. Okay, which is obviously something that you're very keen to do, otherwise you wouldn't be sat here. Okay? And it's also about contributing free of the victim vibration. If you still got some connection to the victim vibration, if you are a therapist, you will have a limited client base. Okay, who's a therapist? Okay. If you haven't got a thriving situation, you've got a link to the victim. Okay, does that make sense? And you harmonize that victim vibration, your working life will open up. Because then you haven't got this fear of humiliation. You'll just go and do stuff. Okay, and things can come to you. And people can sniff you out with the victim vibration. It's a stage that everybody goes through, so don't worry about it. Okay? So the soul realization is the state where the personality responds to the soul frequency rather than the other way around. So the other way around is the soul's trying to fight with the personality and say, oh, excuse me, can we just get on with this? No, I'm in control. You stay there. Oh, can we just get on with it? Can we just have fun? No, you stay there to what we know. This is the way we know it. This is how we know it. And so you're going back in your box. So shut up. And then this battle between the personality and the soul goes on for years and years and years until the soul gets bored and goes, oh, for God's sake, I'm going to do it anyway. And then it will crash absolutely through, and the personality cannot control that. Okay, until it goes, all right, okay, I trust you now. I trust you at a soul level. Okay, let's just get on with it. And you've got that connection. Okay. It's the stage at which the personality is no longer frightened. Okay. And at this stage, the sensitivity of your nervous system is no longer an issue. It becomes a powerful component of who you are. It is not a disability. In actual fact, the majority of people would absolutely love to be able to see the world the way that you can. They would love to have that connection to life, to energy, to love. The only reason that you are not necessarily fully experiencing it now is because the personality is having a control freaky deaky over it. Okay, does that make sense? How does it happen for the intuitive sensitive? The push for connection between the soul and the mind takes place through an increased awareness in terms of your intuitive ability. Okay, so rather than try and sideswipe it, embrace it. If you want to really feel what it is as far as the enlightened path is concerned, where you can live your own truth without fear of it being rejected, this is how you do it. You have to connect to the intuitive self. Okay? And it's pushing from the basics of internal development outwards. It's not looking for the external to come in. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, so how does it happen? it is about you engaging. There are different layers of things. So you're in the healing stage, okay, because this is your interest. So you're in the healing stage that is now moving in to the deeper intuition stage. So when you are working on someone, when you're working on someone's energy system, you're starting to feel their internal world. And you may feel it as their thoughts and feelings and a whole load of stuff rushing through your head, going, whoa, what's going on here? And you're trying to, at certain levels, interpret it and work out whether, oh, is this real? Is this about this person? Or is that my imagination? How do I distinguish it? And then panicking over whether you got it right or not. Or whether you're going to take on all of that energy that person is trying to dissolve. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah. What I'm trying to show, or try to show you, is that different layers of consciousness will communicate in different ways as appropriate to the individual. And what I'm trying to show you is that part of the soul realization is you being able to access all those different layers of consciousness within yourself. You're not going to get it. It's already there. It's already part of your system. You're already enough. All you're doing is revealing to yourself that you are enough. Okay, does that make sense? Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time, and I've very much enjoyed